So these Boston Acoustics cost me $6 a piece, which I thought was a pretty good deal, considering they're pretty good quality speakers, apart from the fact they need foaming for the cones. So you carefully remove the front cover so that you can get to the speakers themselves. And freed it up. And you can see here how the cone has deteriorated. It's pretty much the foam is just falling apart, and it goes all sort of tacky and loses its flexibility and starts to tear and so forth. So no good anymore. But I do have the replacement, so this is how we do it. So first of all, I'm going to remove the 4 screws that are holding the speaker in place, and that will give me access to the speaker itself. I don't want to be too heavy-fisted removing these screws because I don't want to puncture the cone, so I have to be a little bit careful. I'm going to unwind these now by hand. Okay, that then gives us access to the speaker itself, which I'm going to need something to help pry out of the case, or cabinet I should say. And here we go. So that's given me access to the speaker, and we've got the 2 wires on the back here, the negative and positive, so we need to remember which way round those are. So the one that's bent at right angles is the negative cable, and the straight one is the positive cable. Looking at the date here, looks like December the 3rd, 1993, so they're pretty old speakers, and you can see a little bit of debris has fallen inside there, so we'll have to shake that out in a minute. So I'm going to remove the cables and get this thing on the bench away from the cabinet itself to give me a bit more room. As you can see, it's a bit of a messy job. You get all this foam debris, which is nasty black sticky stuff, and I've removed as much as I can around the edge here with scraping with the blunt edge of this craft knife, and now I'm going to remove the rest of this with some isopropyl alcohol, including around the edge of the cone. I'm not going to scrape the cone, I'm just going to wipe it with some isopropyl alcohol. I normally use 70% isopropyl alcohol for this. So I've removed all of the foam now from around the surround, the support, or the spider as they call it, and the cone. I wiped that gently with some 70% isopropyl alcohol, and so I've removed pretty much all traces of the original foam support. And now I'm down to this cork seal, which was underneath the foam, and I'm going to leave that in place and glue the new foam first of all to the cone, let that dry, and then I'll glue it to the outside spider support. I'm going to allow this to dry a little bit first because it's still got a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on it, so I'm going to let that evaporate first and then go on from there. I've applied a bead of adhesive all the way around the edge of the cone, and so now the foam will sit on top of the cone and I'll glue that in place first, making sure that it's centralized. While the glue is curing, you need to just keep gently pushing pressure around the cone. Don't sweep around the cone, because that's likely to bias the cone in a particular direction. So just press gently in different places to make sure that the cone is being properly attached to the foam. And so we just move around the foam, pressing gently. Until the whole of the cone is attached and the glue is set. So this is going to take a while. Okay, so now the glue has cured. What I need to do now is glue the surround edge to the frame, or the spider as it's called. And I'm also going to put in a test tone to move the speaker backwards and forwards so that I can align it correctly. So now I've applied the glue to the outer ring of the foam, and again I'm exercising this cone at 1 Hertz, in other words 1 full cycle every second, and the cone is moving freely, and the glue here is curing, and it's pretty much done. I just got to let it cure completely, and this one's complete. This is the generator that I'm using to input the signal to the speaker. So you can see here the frequency is set to, for channel A, and that's set to 1 Hertz, 1 cycle per second. The amplitude is 20 volts peak to peak, and it's a pure sine wave. Well, I say pure, it's a sine wave that it's driving the speaker with. So you can see that the speaker is gradually going up and down, just like the sine wave. And here you can see the speaker moving slowly up and down, quite freely. Actually, this time I'm using a lower frequency, just 0.5 of a hertz, and so it takes 2 seconds for a complete cycle. And the cone will actually find its own positioning as you exercise it. The glue is still loose enough, it hasn't cured enough to actually keep the cone fixed in the wrong position. So as you exercise the cone, it will actually settle into its own central position. And then once I've done this for, say 5-10 minutes, I can assume that it's in its correct position and start to tap down around the edges and glue the edges more permanently. In the meantime, I've given the speaker grills a very gentle wash under some warm water. No liquid soap or anything, just water, and given them a good rinse with some fresh water, just lukewarm. Dry them off gently, and they should be good to go. I've increased the frequency a little bit to 4 Hertz, and the cone is travelling nicely. So I'm going to let that settle. I'm going to turn off the generator, the signal generator, and let it settle, and let the glue cure. And as it cures, I'm going to keep tapping down around the edge of the speaker cone and foam to make sure it glues together properly and pushes out any air bubbles and so forth. I'm now driving the speaker through a range of tones from around 50 Hz up to about 5k, 5 kilohertz. And it's given the speaker a good workout. However, you might hear a click in between each tone. I think that's the generator. I don't think it's the speaker itself. The speaker's reproducing it, but I think it's being caused by the generator as it sweeps between frequencies. There's that little click between each tone. Okay, now the now the frequency is set to 200 Hz, and we can slowly increase that. But you might notice in between each frequency change there's that click. So I'm pretty sure that's the generator that's causing that. Getting pretty much to the top end of this capability of this speaker, or my hearing, one of the that's 7.5K. Okay, it's pretty much stopped now. That's at 9K. It's fairly efficient at about 1K. And if we adjust the amplitude here, it's pretty efficient at 1K. So the speaker's performing pretty well. I'm still waiting for the glue to completely cure around the edges of the foam here, and then once that's completely cured, then I'll put these back into the cabinets. As you can see from the process that I followed here, I didn't have to touch the dome in the center of the cone. In some cases, people are suggesting that you actually take out the dome in the center and shim the coil around the magnet. It's not necessary. If you're careful, you don't have to do that. So one speaker's back together. The glue has cured on the drive unit around the foam, and all that's left now for me to do is put the speaker grill back on the front and give it a test. So not a bad deal really. The speakers cost me $6 a piece from Goodwill. The re-foaming kit for these speakers was $14.90 $9 plus shipping of $6, so $20.99 altogether. The company also supplies a CD, which they have a 30 Hz test tone on the CD, but it wasn't required for my purposes. But anybody that doesn't have a tone generator, frequency generator, etc., this might come in very useful. So I'm testing the speaker now with some alternate tones, and it's handling those very nicely. I've got the one frequency at 200 Hz. The hop frequency is 100 Hz. And it's switching between the two every half a second. Let me change that frequency a bit. That's jumping between 600 Hz and 100 Hz. So that's between 6 and 300. And the speaker's working fine, so very pleased with the result. Okay, I wonder how many people know how you check if your speakers are in phase or out of phase. Well, there's a quick test you can do. Turn them to face one another, and if the sound reduces, you know they're out of phase. That hasn't reduced. Okay, now I'm going to put one of these out of phase. Okay, now one of these speakers are out of phase with the other. Well, they're both out of phase, effectively. But watch what happens when I turn them to face one another, volume-wise. The volume's almost gone completely, because they're cancelling one another out. So that's how you check if your speakers are in phase or not. Typically today, speakers are marked with a positive and negative terminal, but if you're not sure, you can check by sending the same signal to both speakers and checking whether they're in phase by turning them to face one another or not. And that will show you whether they're in phase or not. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you subscribe, you'll be notified of future videos. Thanks again. Bye for now. Oh, and one last comment. I'm going to store these on their backs for at least 24 hours just to give that glue plenty of time to fully cure. Just in case, because if the glue is still a little bit soft, then there's a possibility that the cones could move over time. So rather than store them normally standing up, if I store them on the backs, the cones are not likely to move. Okay, thanks again. Bye for now.